Well, good afternoon to all of our fellow Tigers, alumni, students, and friends. Thank you so much for joining us for today's presentation. We have a really great group of panelists here today from a variety of different backgrounds and industries, and they're really excited to share some of their insight about navigating your career search and some of their experiences, as well as what they're seeing out there in the market right now. My name's Katie Bush. I'm the manager of business development at Katz Bosch. I'm a 2014 Towson graduate and a member of the Towson University Business and Leadership Alumni Alliance. The Business and Leadership Alumni Alliance consists of Towson alum who are interested in connecting with other alumni through professional and social networking opportunities. The Alliance is open to all TU alum who have an interest in leadership development and are engaged in the business community. I've been involved the last few years, and it's been such a great opportunity to connect with like-minded individuals and to stay connected with the university and learn about what's happening and how you can stay involved. So I really encourage everyone to check us out, and you can join the Alliance by visiting Tiger Connect at alumni.towson.edu/groups. And you can also join the group on Facebook and LinkedIn. So before we introduce today's presenters, I did just want to share a few brief housekeeping notes. This session is going to be recorded and shared with all event registrants when it's finalized. Attendees will remain muted throughout the discussion, but we really want today to be interactive. And we know that can be a little tough through the computer screen, but please utilize the chat to let us know your comments and questions, and we'll make sure to monitor that to make sure anything there is addressed. But to kind of get us started today, I'd love for everyone that's joined us to drop a line in the chat. Introduce yourself, when you graduated. If you're a student, what are you studying right now? And also let us know why you joined the call today. Is there something in particular that you're looking to get out of it, or something that we can help with? We'd love to hear from you. So with that, as people are starting to introduce themselves, we will have our panelists introduce themselves as well. So let's start with you, Anne-Marie.
Hi, thank you everybody for joining us today. My name is Anne-Marie Monroe, and I am a Towson grad of 1995. I currently work in banking. I've been in the banking community in Baltimore for 28 years, and I'm a commercial relationship manager, which actually allows me to do more than one thing each day in my job. So happy to be here and excited to share what I've brought with me today.
Well, hi everyone. I'm Allison Ames, class of 2011, and I'm excited to be here, excited for all of the topics today. I currently serve as Director of Marketing and Communications for my company, Greenberg Gibbons. We're a commercial real estate company and specialize in outdoor mixed-use shopping centers. So I'm excited to share a little bit more about that today, but I pretty much handle anything from PR and branding to design, events, and grassroots marketing, web management, and more. So looking forward to sharing more in a few moments.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Hendricks, two-time graduate of Towson University, undergrad in 2009, and again for grad school with a master's degree in human resource development in 2011. I'm currently serving as an HR business partner. My role is really to branch human resources functions with the business, understanding kind of our internal client needs and the people needs that they have, and bridging the gap. In a previous life, I was a recruiter as well, so really looking forward to helping you all and answering some questions around resume, interview prep, and the likes there. So really excited to be a part of the conversation today.
Excellent. Well, Alex, Allison, Anne Marie, thank you all so much for joining us today. Really excited to dive in here. But before we get started, we do have 4 door prizes today we're very excited about. You must be present to win, so make sure that you stay throughout the end of the program in order to get it. So for our first door prize, we have a $25 gift card to Quiet Storm. So you can get yourself set up for this warmer weather, maybe get a new outfit or something. So our first winner is Maxwell Casino. Maxwell Casino. So congratulations, you just won a $25 gift card to Quiet Storm. We'll follow up with you about getting that over, but thanks for joining us today. We'll have 3 more following up, but for now, I'm going to pass it over to Allison and Anne Marie to discuss our first topic, Instagram versus reality. So as we know, sometimes things aren't as you thought that they might appear or what you expect. So we'd love for those joining us, drop in the chat, tell us about a reality that you didn't expect when you entered the workforce, something that you thought might be one way, but it wasn't. We'd love to hear your feedback. And I'll now kick it over to Allison and Anne Marie.
Okay, thanks, Katie. So it's our understanding that our audience today includes seniors that are about to graduate, recent graduates, and Towson alum who either may be looking for a new job or may be looking to share some of the content of today's presentation with their peers. So whatever your reason for being here, thank you. I encourage you to have a pad of paper handy. Allison and I have been working hard to try to put together, it's a broad topic, so we've been trying to narrow down some of the most important key points to keep top of mind as you navigate your journey through to finding a job and getting your career underway. And so to kick off, we find that the most important bullet point that you should always stay true to is to know yourself and to know what you like. Before you even start your search, you should really be honest with yourself. Be realistic. What are you looking for? What is it that you want to do with your life? You know, there are tons of jobs out there. Finding a job is a massive undertaking. To make it easier for yourself, you may want to funnel it down and make a list and understand, what are you good at? What are you willing to do in the job that you'll be doing? And what companies, sometimes I suggest to make a list of companies that you'd like to work for and consider where you could bring value to those companies and start looking at the search that way. But whatever it is that you are looking to do, I'm going to encourage that the number 1 bullet point is to be realistic about your search, be honest with yourself, and that will guide you and help to narrow down how you go about determining who you'll be speaking with. Allison, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think one of the things you mentioned was making a list, and I think that's incredibly important. And it sounds like it could be a waste of time, but you'd be surprised about what you write down about yourself, why you're interested maybe in some of those companies that you also made a list of. And I think, you know, Anne Marie said it best, it just is extremely important to know what you like to do and also what you're capable of. And I think that'll help you kind of fine tune and, you know, refine your search for what kind of job that you would like to do. And it could be as silly as knowing, you know, whether or not you're an introvert or an extrovert, or do you like sitting behind a desk, or do you like getting out there in the field, or do you need a mix of both because you need a little bit of downtime and off time? So knowing that about yourself can really drive results in your career search as well. And I think just to kind of roll into, you know, something else that we find really important is to understand that you don't know what you don't know, right? So you have to keep an open mind to what's out there. And sometimes it's just happenstance. You stumble upon an opportunity or a resource that pushes you in a certain direction. And other times it's just kind of taking a wider approach to kind of funneling down where you would like to work or spend your time. You know, sometimes we become fixated on a certain image or ideal. This could be how much money you make, a type of company that you work for, or even how you choose to carry out that passion. And that's kind of what we're talking about here today with the whole Instagram versus reality. You have one thing in your mind, but in reality, it's messy and in a fun way. And I think you've just got to kind of keep an open mind to that approach and think outside of the box as to what's out there. So for example, just because maybe you graduate with a marketing degree, just because you have that marketing degree or PR doesn't mean that you need to go work for an advertising agency. I mean, most industries have a marketing department, and you'd be surprised at how fruitful and how great that experience could actually be. The other thing that I think is super important, I recently was working with a student who's getting ready to graduate this year. She approached me and basically was just confused about what she wanted to do. She had a couple different kinds of passions. She wasn't really sure where she wanted to work. She identified that she was an introvert, and so she didn't want to have the switch on all the time. And so she really couldn't figure out where to start looking for a job. And so I said, why don't you try just looking at the description of the job itself? Don't get fixated on the title of the job, because to be honest, marketing director at one company is a completely different skill set and a level of expertise at another company, and comes with maybe two completely separate pay ranges. So you can't really fixate on the title, which I know a lot of people love to do. It's fun to have a fun title, but I think it's really about the description of the job itself. And just to kind of wrap up on my end, I think that one of the best examples I can give is kind of my own journey. When I graduated, I knew I wanted to do events. I had internships with events. I was very passionate about it. As I was doing my job search, I realized that there's not a lot of event coordination opportunities. And so I had to start opening my mind to possibilities of different areas of marketing. I kept seeing sales jobs, knew I didn't want to do sales. I don't really care if you buy that thing. So I decided that I wanted to do something a little different. There wasn't a job necessarily available for me right away. So I ended up with a company doing it was an upscale bowling alley, and they did events, did some really cool events, got a lot of experience underway. I learned a lot about being out there as a professional. And when I decided that I just didn't feel like working those hours anymore and I was ready for the office job, I applied for this job on Craigslist. I applied for a bunch of jobs on Craigslist, and I picked this one job out of the bunch. And the only reason why I applied to it was because I really liked the description. The company actually had left off their name, the industry that they were in. I had no idea who I would be working for, but I knew I really enjoyed everything that was listed in that description. So I applied for it, and funny enough, they called me back, had no idea who they were because they didn't say who they were, but ended up getting that job, and here I am today. That company was Greenberg Gibbons, and I really, worked my way up to kind of where I am now. But I think that if it had said commercial real estate on it, I would have said, excuse me, what? Like, I don't know what that means. It's not, fun and frilly. But I think that I was lucky that I ended up stumbling upon that and keeping my mind open.
Yeah, that's great information, Allison. I think the only thing I would add on to that is that as you're considering the job description, again, steer off of the job title. I'm a vice president with my current company. I'm one of about 250 vice presidents. The title doesn't mean as much as the results of the job that I do every day. My point to you is keep it simple. You get out of it what you put into it. So it doesn't matter what your role is. You need to show up every day and put your best effort forward. And know, again, we're going to keep reviewing what we've already said. Know your value, know your skill set, know what you can bring to the table. Keep pushing forward. Take that step forward every single day in what your job is. It's key in being able to get to the next place. And we're going to transition into, as you're still looking for your job or you're thinking about making a change, should you be looking at big companies versus small companies? I think a lot of people think the bigger companies are where the larger opportunities lie. And that may be true in some industries. Big companies have more layers. They have more rules of engagement. They also have more money to spend on their manpower. But that doesn't mean that that's going to be the best place for any individual to find themselves when they're starting out or transitioning. Maybe you're in transition to a new industry. You may want to consider the small shops. I'm a fan of the small businesses. I started my career in a small business. I started at a savings and loan. And I will tell you that I got my foundation from working on the teller line, from learning the basics of the industry, and then coming up the chain of command. I can work behind the scenes, I can work front lines. I know this industry inside and out thanks to the fact that I did not judge a small business. I jumped in, I did everything I could to become valuable to my company. And then when I outgrew the opportunities within that company, I looked to grow to another company. I'm not saying big companies aren't a good choice. All I'm saying is don't discount the small ones, because sometimes the small ones give you greater opportunities to shine in the early stages of your career.
Yeah, and I think just to add on to that, I mean, small companies sometimes can offer you more opportunities because you get a chance to wear more hats and really develop your skill set. And it'll be amazing whether you stay with that company or you move on to the next or a completely different industry, how you're able to tap into that skill set. And at the same time, if you are looking at a larger company, I mean, sometimes because of the turnover, there can be faster growth opportunities for you. So it really becomes just a matter of preference. And as Anne Marie said earlier, we're going to keep coming back to knowing yourself and what you like, because all of this kind of folds into each other. You know, the size of the company can also affect how you perceive your work-life balance. So I know for me, and what I believe to be true for everyone, is that your work-life balance is ever changing. I mean, especially as you start at you know, younger in your career and you kind of move up. I mean, the responsibilities, the duties in your personal life are constantly changing. And as you continue to grow within your career, those are going to change as well. And so really understanding yourself and what's important to you, you know, and what's important to you today most likely will change in another 10, 15, 20 years down the road. So I think work-life balance is a really important thing to just kind of check in with yourself. It's a real topic, and I think you'd be surprised as you go through what's important to you. I mean, I know that when I started, I was career driven. I was ready to be that professional. And then a couple years into it, I was like, nah, I kind of want to hang out with my friends and do life a little bit more. And then I was like, no, I'm ready to take on more responsibility. So just knowing that about yourself can really go a long way.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time in our jobs, and you will learn through your career that at some point you determine different things are important to you. Early on, the thrill of the kill as a salesperson was big for me. How many appointments could I get in a day? How many sales could I get in a week? And you know, as the years pass and you establish yourself in the marketplace, and you get older, you start to look at things differently. So it's not a crime to look at things differently. Know what's important to you. Life is short, and we are not working to live or living to work. We're finding a balance in between. And hopefully you can enjoy both parts of that, and make the most of it in our time that we're here. But there is something important to understand as you're putting everything you've got into your job, to understand that there's a twofold effort that goes on. When you start a job with a company, you do need to keep in mind, and you probably heard this from others, that there is going to be a window of time that, regardless of your age, regardless of, you know, maybe how long you've been doing a certain job someplace else, you are going to have to pay your dues and earn your place in the company that you join. Please understand that this is not a punishment. It's meant to be an opportunity for you to be able to shine, to show what, you know, show your stuff, show what you've got, bring it to the table. You know yourself. Again, keep that open mind about where you are right now, and capitalize on the opportunity to make suggestions, you know, create solutions. I always had a saying for staff members when I was a manager. They'd come to me with a question, and I always had a rule: make sure you come back to me with 3 solutions as well, because I want people to learn to think for themselves. There is nothing better for a manager than to have an employee that can think outside the box, and that's pushing things forward, not only for yourself, but for the company. And that's where you're really creating value and you're learning. So you're actually establishing yourself as a more well-rounded employee and individual. But also know the signs of when you push so far and you don't get reciprocation, that you might feel a sense of burnout. So understand what those signs are. If you're working 12-hour days, if you are having a problem getting any kind of communication back from the employee that you work with, the manager that you work with, if you're speaking up and you're not being heard, maybe it is time to seriously consider a change. Understand how it feels to be drained, how it feels to be burned out, and know when the time is right to consider a change. A change is not a crime. It's healthy, it's good for you as an individual. And just, again, know yourself, keep an open mind about all of this, and be realistic about what's happening around you. Keep your eyes wide open.
Yeah, and I think that was really well said. And I think the biggest thing about change is making sure that it's growing you, whatever part of life that is, internally, externally. Just make sure whatever it is that it's serving you and it's helping you to grow in some capacity. And just to reiterate what Anne Marie said, I love the idea of the communication. It's so important to have that open line of communication with your manager. People don't quit jobs; they quit, management and leadership, and I think that's super true. So just as much as they're holding you accountable, I think you need to hold them accountable. Just one other kind of thing that I can slip in there would be, making sure that you're reading the room. When you're a new employee, and again, it doesn't matter how old you are, how long you've been at something. When you're coming into a new company culture, it is important to make sure that you're understanding kind of the dynamics of and the structure of how the company is set up, what processes are available to be able to submit ideas or speak up in a conference room. Really get to know the company and your leadership in terms of what's kind of been done. But at the same time, like Anne Marie said, you've got to make sure that you're speaking up too, and that it is being heard. It's full circle. And again, as we've mentioned time and time again, it all folds into everything that we're talking about today, and knowing yourself and what you like. Life is a balancing act, and your career is no different. And as you embark on this process, the one thing that I could say to remember is to make sure that you understand that your connections and your relationships are everything. Make sure that you're attending those networking events. Reach out to mom and dad's contacts or your teacher's resources. Reach out randomly to that guy that works at that big company you eye so much for a coffee date to get advice and create a little mentorship relationship. It'll pay off, and it might not be that day, that week, that month. It honestly could be 5-10 years down the road when you bump into them at something else. And, especially if you're staying here in Baltimore, they call it Smaltimore for a reason, and just making sure that you're really taking advantage of them. And my one piece of advice that I always give to anyone that I work with is don't burn bridges. It's so very easy to get upset at someone or think someone is being ridiculous or whatever it might be, or you don't like the way that they talk to you. And that's going to happen because it's human nature and it's life, but it's how you deal with it. And that's one thing I can say that my communications degree from Towson really helped with, is how I kind of handle my relationships. And if I need to take that 30-second deep breath after I get an email, then I take that 30-second deep breath and I respond kindly to whatever that might be that ruffled my feathers. So I think it's just super important to know that you're gonna come across these different obstacles, but whatever you do, don't burn bridges, because that person might be super important to you. They might be on the hiring committee to the next job in your career, and you had no idea, or they're brothers and sisters with that hiring committee member. So I just think that that's probably the one piece that I can leave with today is don't burn bridges.
I'm going to steal a little bit of that, Allison, because that's great advice. Own your actions. Someone once told me years ago, every time you go out in public, you're networking. You're interacting with people, you're networking. And you never know who knows who. So to Allison's point, own your actions, be responsible, keep your eyes wide open, be a good person, do the right things. And, I think if you are totally aware of what it is you're looking for, and you keep in mind all the key points that we've brought to light today, I think that'll put you on a good path and you'll feel a little more composed in your search. Allison and I are always available if anybody wants to follow up with us for a one-on-one conversation. But I think at this point, I think it's time to pass it on to our friend Alex, because now we're ready for some really great advice on the interview process.
Awesome. Well, Anne Marie and Allison, thank you so much for your thoughts. And you covered a lot there, everything from the importance of your network and not burning any bridges to what to look for in the job description, big versus small companies. A lot of really good advice there. And I'm looking forward during the Q&A to dive into all of that a little bit deeper and find out what people are thinking, what questions they have that we can elaborate on. So really appreciate that. Before we toss it over to Alex, we are going to do our second door prize, and this is for a $100 gift card to Kenilworth Gourmet. Sounds like a great new restaurant that will be opening up end of May. So Kenilworth Gourmet is also currently hiring staff. So for anyone out there that's looking for an opportunity soon, you can look at the screen for more information, and you can also scan the QR code to fill out an application. So for the gift card, $100, this one will go to Elizabeth Healy. Congratulations, Elizabeth. I see lots of treats in your future with Kenilworth Gourmet. Thanks for joining us today. And with that, I'm now going to toss it over to Alex for our next segment that's all around the reality of applying and interviewing for a job and really creating that lasting impression. So while he dives into that, we'd also love to hear from the audience. What are your biggest concerns around interviewing and resumes? What are some of the challenges you face? Or for some of our alum that have been in the work world for a while, what are some of the things that you learned along the way that really helped you? So with that, we'll toss it to Alex.
I mean, first of all, this should be a crime that I have to follow Allison and Anne Marie. What a great job that they did, right? I was sitting there writing down things because there's things that tie into what I'm going to talk about. There's some great things. Anne Marie, I love what you talked about, the 3 solutions, right? One of my leaders, former leaders and mentors, it used to always be, don't come to me with a problem and nothing else, right? Come to me with, hey, this is a problem that I faced and here's how I solved it. Or here's a problem that I'm facing. Here is the 1 or 2 solutions that I'm thinking about, and having some guidance there. So I love that you hit on that. Allison, the work-life balance thing, as you mentioned, right? It's going to fluctuate throughout your career, right? The things that are important to you as a 22-year-old are going to be very different than what's important to you. As an older individual, maybe someone who has families, maybe someone who has other life commitments. It is all going to change. So be sure that you are thinking about what is important to you, for sure. So thanks for making it tough to have to follow you guys, but again, great that now that we kind of talked about that Instagram versus reality type of mindset, I wanted to talk about the reality of actually applying for and interviewing jobs, and really just overall creating a lasting impression for potential employers. Resumes are kind of that foundation, right? The resume is what's going to get you into the door for an interview, but the interview itself is actually what's going to get you the job. So, focusing on the resume first, my recommendation is to always have a general resume template, right? One where, again, it speaks high level about your different roles, your different jobs, but it is very important not to just use that base template, right? It is very important to craft your resume that you're submitting to the job that you're applying for. I know that Allison and Anne Marie talked about reviewing the role itself and not just the title, right? Titles can sometimes be deceiving. So make sure that you are looking at that job description. include keywords from the job posting that you saw, right? And make sure that you're having correlating experiences or transferable skill sets that are being highlighted based upon that job description. You're gonna want to make sure you do the research, on the company. Another thing that Allison and Anne-Marie talked about, right? Perhaps a company that you work with is really big in the community and in the nonprofit world. That would tell me that I should probably include some of the charitable work or events that I've been part of in my resume to show, hey, this is important to me too. I can help with that if I get in the door here. Sometimes I see job descriptions, and in my recruiting days, I would see job descriptions that are almost regurgitating their actual job description and the responsibilities of the job. Sure, that's great and that's important. You want to talk about what you owned and what you were responsible for. But I'm a big fan, and I love seeing resumes that focus on accomplishments while you're in a role, right? Yeah, we're going to assume that you have certain responsibilities if your job title is X, Y, and Z. And so you want to make sure that you're clarifying what are and aren't things that you own, but focus on the accomplishments, right? Include data points with it. For example, like I successfully implemented a program that impacted 250 people or 250 employees, and talk about how it impacted them, right? It's one thing to say, I am in charge of recruiting individuals to an organization. Well, how did you diversify how that is being done? What were the new approaches that you took that were different than the way other recruiters might have done it? Those are the things that are going to stand out to hiring managers for sure. Keep your resume concise. Now, I know that as you start to kind of develop more and more work experience, that's going to be a little tough, right? But as a recruiter, I can tell you, we don't like going through tons and tons of pages on a resume, right? Because at that point, it's information overload, right? Some of it's not going to be relevant to us anymore. So focus on the relevant information in your work history that applies to the role that you are applying for. Again, that goes back to having that general resume template and then catering it to the job. What works for one job that you're applying for might work different. It might not work the same way for a different job. So make sure that you're keeping that in mind and including relevant information for the role that you are applying for. Cover letters, right? I know they are so annoying. I hate doing cover letters, right? But I would seriously consider submitting a cover letter along with your resume. Your resume is going to paint a certain picture about you, right? It's going to talk about some of the roles, some of your accomplishments, but it's not necessarily always going to talk about you as a person, the things that are important to you and why you want that specific job or why you want to work for that particular organization. So again, I get that they can be annoying to create, but a cover letter could be able to highlight some of those things that will allow you to stand out from some of the other applicants for that role. Again, I know that our audience here is primarily either recent or upcoming grads, even some alumni as well. But for those that are more recent or upcoming graduates, I understand that your work history may not be very extensive. But that doesn't mean you can't talk about your internships. You can't talk about your extracurricular activities. If you were part of Greek life, right? What roles did you have while you were part of Greek life that might highlight some transferable skill sets? If you were an athlete, what were the things that you did, right? Maybe you've had some internships. Believe it or not, babysitting, nannying, whatever you want to call it, has transferable skill sets. At the very least, it should show that you are a responsible human being, right? So please don't shy away if you don't have an extensive work history from some things that you might think, they don't really want to know about that. Put it on there, especially when you don't have a significant work history, but put it on there in a way that's going to highlight the transferable skill sets that can make you a great fit for this new professional role that you are applying for. So want to segue, right? That's kind of getting the resume foundations or best practices from my point of view. Now it's for preparing for the interview, right? So you nailed the resume, you've got the interview set up. As you can see on the cameras, at least for the 5 of us here, right? We are all at home right now and in a virtual setting. The pandemic has caused that, right? The pandemic has forced us in a situation now where most people are interviewing on virtually right now, right? So make sure that you're prepared for that. Make sure that your background is professional. Again, I know we're talking to college folks here, so I'll make a joke about make sure you don't have bottles of alcohol talking to Alexa in one of these prep sessions. I know that when I was in college, we were big on having the Natty Light 30 packs or Keystone 30-pack boxes as wallpaper on our walls. So make sure that you don't have that. Make sure you don't have a pile of clothes in your view, right? Keep it professional, right? Make sure that it's you're in a well-lit area that has good internet connection, right? You don't want to be having visual issues or having the call drop in and out. So make sure that you're testing those things ahead of time. See if you can hop on a quick Zoom call or something else with a friend or a mentor to be able to kind of run through and make sure that all of those things are good and you have a truly professional background. I feel like it's kind of goes without saying, but I want to make sure I'm reiterating: be prepared to be on camera. At my current company, we just launched what's called an interview day, where we actually interview several upcoming college graduates, and there were several that just weren't on camera. Right? At the end of the day, this is an interview, right? I've heard about this where they're not. Again, I've heard about it. I've seen it where they're not turning on their camera. Right? They'll be present, but they're not turning on their camera. We want to see your face. We want to see your reactions, your enthusiasm coming through, right? We can't get that if we're staring at a blank screen or the initials of your name. So make sure that you're prepared to be on camera, that the attire that you are wearing is professional. Again, just because we're home doesn't mean you throw on the hoodie that was sitting there on your chair. Now, we might be wearing sweatpants underneath this, but at least from the top up, we're gonna be dressed professional and look prepared and trying to make an impression for these organizations that we are trying to get a job with. I want to segue from here into some of the things you want to say, some of the things you probably want to avoid. I was asked if there's any golden questions to ask, and so I would say the first tip that I would have as you are prepping for the interview is to research the company, right? I know Allison and Anne-Marie mentioned that as well. Know the company well so that you can show them that you know about their organization and what they're doing. If they are bringing up certain things, you can say, oh yeah, I saw that, or I read about you guys are focused on X, Y, and Z, or you guys have set these metrics for Q1 of 2022, things like that. Be able to weave those in your responses. One, it'll show that you're very excited and interested. You're willing to do the due diligence to know the things that are important to them and that are also important to you. We talked about being on camera and being able to show excitement and enthusiasm, right? I know it might sound silly to mention, but make sure that you're showing that you're excited about the job, that this isn't something that you're having to labor through, that you can't wait for it to be over. Internally, that might be true, right? We might all be nervous and not really feeling confident maybe, but don't let that show, right? Show that you are enthused. Interviewers can pick up on tones, your vocal tones, they'll read your body language. Don't be slouched down in your chair or kind of, that sounds exciting. Show it, right? Show it in your body language, show it in the enthusiasm that you have when you're answering or giving responses to their questions. They want to make sure that you are excited, truly excited about being part of the organization, just as much as they are excited to talk to you. I know that I believe it was Anne-Marie who mentioned earlier about, or both Anne-Marie and Allison mentioned earlier about kind of, you never know who you're going to interact with, right? So it's very important that, you're definitely going to be asked about your work history, right? And why you've left other roles, perhaps. Never speak negatively about your previous jobs, the companies that you were with, the leaders that you might have interacted with, or even colleagues that you might have interacted with, no matter how bad of an experience it was, right? Like that's what Allison talked about. You never know who you're going to be interviewing with, right? You never know what ties and connections that they might have. Certainly you can talk about the previous role that I had wasn't the right fit for me at that time, right? But highlight what you were able to learn in that role or in that capacity and how it made you ready for this potential opportunity. So again, I hope it goes without saying not to speak negatively about your job, your previous jobs, companies, or leaders or colleagues, but just as Allison and Anne-Marie pointed out, right? You never know who you're going to be interacting with or who those people know, and you don't want that to speak ill of you and potentially prevent you from obtaining that job as well. Be prepared to talk about areas of opportunity, right? I know that a lot of companies and interviewers have gotten away from saying, what areas of weakness do you have, but now they'll refer to it more as what are areas of opportunities for yourself. The first thing that I'm going to say is please don't say I'm a perfectionist, right? That is one of the most overused, overrated responses that I've heard, in trying to try to put a spin on a weakness, but it's a good thing, right? It is okay. No one is perfect, and it's okay to say that, right? But try to show that you're aware of this and the things that you do to minimize the impact of it. Maybe it's something that's an area of opportunity for you, but you make up for it with this. So make sure that you're tying that together. So again, we're not expecting you to be perfect. We understand that there might be areas of opportunity, but show that you are aware of those things. That again, it's going to speak to your self-awareness, and show that you've already thought about how to minimize or mitigate the impact that it might have. Again, I just want to make sure that again, you're prepared in general to kind of talk about these things. There are going to be questions that come to you. So again, making sure that you do the research. But remember that this is just as much you interviewing the organization as it is them interviewing you, right? Have questions prepared. Again, as a leader now and interviewing folks, when I was a recruiter and interviewing folks, I hated it when people didn't have questions, right? Obviously, in my recruiter capacity, I would hope that yes, I have answered every question that you don't have some, but there should be some outside the box questions that you're asking, right? So be sure that you're prepared. This is choosing a job and a career is a very important life task, right? You don't want to take it lightly. You want to make sure that you are being tied to an organization that fits your values, fits your personality, fits the things that you are interested to do. So again, make sure that you have questions prepared for them. Ask the interviewer what are things that they love about the company and what keeps them there, right? Everyone can talk about their culture. You might see things like that posted on their job, but ask the interviewer, right? There are going to be different things that people care about. So make sure that you're asking those things to make sure that they're aligned with you. I know Allison and Anne-Marie also mentioned that make sure that you determine and kind of reflect on what's important to you. In today's day and age, companies want to work for a company. Or candidates want to work for a company that has values that they care about. We talked about nonprofit world, right? Maybe it's something, maybe what's important to you is a company's involvement in the community and partnering with nonprofits. Maybe it's diversity and inclusion, right? Something else that I work heavily in. Those things and how a company or how an organization is aligning with social causes or social issues might be important to you. So make sure that you're researching it on the front end and being able to ask questions on the back end to ensure that it's an ideal fit for you. So I feel like I just had word vomit, right? Trying to get through and make sure that we had a lot of questions, but those are some of my main best practices. But please, I haven't looked at the chat section yet, but please, feel free to ask any other questions or concerns that you guys have about resume writing or interview prep that I can answer for you in the Q&A portion. So thank you guys.
Alex, we did have one. Someone asked, how long should your resume be?
Yeah, so it's a tricky one, right? Because again, the more extensive your career is, it's going to be harder to minimize that and take out some bullets. I would always say no more than 2 pages, right? Ideally, a 1-pager is great. Fondle with the margins a little bit. It doesn't need to be super small, doesn't need to be double spaced. But be able to, again, highlight, you don't have to put every little thing that you do in a job, right? Highlight the accomplishments, highlight the responsibilities and roles that you have that are important to the job that you're seeking. Maybe you talk about at the bottom there are 3 or 4 other jobs that you might have had that you don't detail necessarily what you do, but it shows a little bit about your work history, maybe longevity in the career, but you focus on the roles that pertain to the opportunity that you're applying for. Again, my resume, having been someone who had just gone through the interview process as well, is 1 page, right? I do have a little bit longer of a work history, but I tried to focus on the things that were relevant to the job that I was applying and interviewing for. So I would say 1 page is great, no more than 2 pages though.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, Alex, thank you so much. I know I have some follow-up questions, and in just a second here, we are going to open it up for any questions you have about what we've talked about today, or anything else that is top of mind for you right now. Before we get into more questions, we have another door prize. So we have another $25 gift card to Quiet Storm, and that is going to go to Samantha Oak. Okriki. I'm so sorry if I butchered your last name, but Samantha, thank you so much for joining us today. Congrats on the gift card. And I'm looking at the chat here and I see a lot of people posting as resources. Micah, you are the absolute best. He is one of my favorite people in the Baltimore community, an absolute super connector. Please connect with him on LinkedIn, as well as Jonathan and a lot of other folks here. In addition to the panelists, we're all here to help land that next opportunity or help you get there. So please connect on LinkedIn. I believe we'll be able to send out all the panelists' contact information in the follow-up email. So in addition to connecting on LinkedIn, we can provide the email so you can connect further about things. So let's get started with the Q&A. Let's see here. Would you recommend asking interviewers about things like ecological impacts and mitigation of the company? So maybe some more sensitive.
That is a great question. I love that. Right. It is having a wife that previously worked in corporate social responsibility. It is becoming more and more a question. Right. Sustainability. We call it CSR. What is a company doing to impact the environment or to not impact the environment in a negative way? Right. I would certainly, again, if that is important to you, by all means, ask that. Again, it is all about what's important to you. If you don't care, how an organization's emissions ratings are or what their sustainability scores are, don't ask. You don't have to ask that. But if that is something that's important to you, by all means, right? You want to work at a company that shares the same values as you, or at least values that you can relate to. So by all means, ask. I know at my current company, we get asked that by our clients as well. So we have now set up reports to be able to talk about what our sustainability scores are, what our CSR impact is. So, there might be reports out there that they will be able to share with you that you can dive into a little bit further.
Awesome. And another question in the interviewing realm, is there a minimum number of questions that you should ask during the interview?
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone can answer this one, but I would say 3 to 5. Always be prepared. Again, you might not have time to ask all of them, but I've been part of some interviews where someone said you've met with a bunch of people already. We know about your background. You ask us questions, right? So I would always have at least 3 to 5 questions prepared to go. No less than that. You can certainly have more and be able to pick and choose. But I would open that question up to the other panelists as well.
And I think maybe just to add on to this, and I think you might have already covered this, but it's really important that you're paying attention throughout the interview. So when it's time to ask those questions, that you're not repeating something that they've already answered earlier in the interview. It really can tell a lot about the characteristics. And it could be that you're just nervous and you've got those kind of in your head, but just something to kind of think about. So always have some backup questions as well.
Yeah, you both already said what I was going to suggest. Great advice from both of you. I would say, yeah, minimum of 3 questions, and make them open-ended questions. Make sure that you show that you have a serious interest and you've done your homework.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Nick Wilson, that's a great comment there. Every company has just about every type of job in some way, so don't limit yourself to any one industry. I think that's really great feedback. And I think a lot of us on the call, I know I never thought I'd work for an accounting firm. I have a sales type role and I barely got through my accounting courses when I was at Towson. I know same thing with Anne-Marie ending up in the banking industry, and Allison with commercial real estate. There is so much opportunity out there. And I don't know if any of the panelists want to touch a little bit more about, how the job description, that's what's most important, right? And it might not necessarily be the industry that's most important, or it might be. Anyone kind of want to elaborate more there?
I can jump in. So I work in banking. My degree is in visual communications. So I was an art major. How on earth does an art major do 28 plus years in the financial services sector and do it successfully? Well, the job description was to work with the customers, to meet the customers' needs, to grow the bank, to obviously adhere to the policies set forth. That's going to come with any company. But how was I going to go about meeting the expectations set by the job? And anybody on the call who may have an arts background will understand that your core is your creativity. You never ever travel far from that. So you always need something that's going to be an outlet for that. So I channeled that and I figured out ways that I was going to capture market share. How was I going to grow my portfolio and help the bank grow in the market it served? How was I going to win favor over the competition? There's so many different ways to go about it, and I don't want to, spend too much time on my story, but I will say that, I'm not a straight, black and white approach like a lot of banks are doing. I like to do things that they're not doing. I like to think outside the box. I like to make everybody else look over and say, what are they doing over there? And the creativity shines through. If you do something different, it not only is good for you as an individual with your company, it's good for the company, and it's also a nice fresh approach for the customer. And, it's a breath of fresh air for them. It's puts a new spin on how the public will look at your company. So, as I've evolved through the banking industry, I've used the creativity for advertising campaigns, for community outreach, for writing. There's a lot of different ways that you can use it. So where I thought I was going to be an advertising professional when I was at Towson, that ended up being what I am, but not exactly how I planned it. And that's okay because, I continue to evolve and try to push my limits to keep doing new stuff.
And I think there's also this idea around continued professional development. When you look at the job description, even though it might have a few items under the responsibilities that you've never done before, and you can't say that you're an expert in it, and maybe you can't even find necessarily the parallelism between that and another job, don't let it scare you off. I think that kind of to Anne Marie's point, you don't know what you are capable of until you actually go after it. So sometimes it's that whole, and maybe I shouldn't be giving this advice, but a fake it till you make it kind of mentality. I mean, you have to know yourself and know that you're going to be capable to actually deliver, that responsibility and those results, but you can kind of learn along the way. And I think if you're just kind of a little bit more, transparent with your manager once you're hired, just, I think that you might find that, I'll give you just an example. I didn't know a lot about web management when I got this job, when I applied for the job or got this job, but it was this one line in a sea of responsibilities that I knew I wanted to take on. And I thought, okay, well, I don't really know web development, but if I really express all of these other items that I'm really good at, maybe when I get there, they'll help me learn. And they did. I was able to kind of learn that skill set, and now it's part of my core set of skills that I carry today. When I joined the company, I obviously joined as a marketing professional. But since then, I've attended school through our parent association, ICSC. And after 2 weeks of schooling there, I learned a lot more about finance, business, acquisitions, asset management, brokerage, and leasing, just to get a better idea of the different departments that I support. So I think professional development in your company is really important, and that might be one of your questions is, how will you as a company support me to kind of continue this?
Yeah, it's great points all around. Another question, which job roles, skills, industries do you see a shortage and a need for now and in the next couple decades?
Yeah, I mean, tech is the easy answer, right? Technology is just growing, and there's the diversity in the roles within tech, right? It's not just traditional. You've got to be some kind of hacker, developer, something like that, right? There are now more roles that are trying to bridge the gap, right? Like being a business partner, similar to myself, right? Where you're trying to bridge the gap between technology and other areas. Cloud services are becoming popular now. So obviously, IT is kind of continuing to expand. But there is still, especially as the economy is recovering right now, roles and roles in the traditional areas of finance and accounting, marketing and communications, right? People are going back into the office. People are, staying home virtually. There's all kinds of roles that are maybe becoming more available and less nuanced because of some of the I guess byproducts of what the pandemic has brought to us. In terms of a shortage, I wouldn't say that I necessarily see a shortage anywhere. Again, our industry is a little bit, I would say, somewhat narrowed. We're heavily on the finance and then the technology areas. So I wouldn't say I see a shortage of any roles right now. But again, I wouldn't say that that's a bad thing, right? I think that there's jobs out there, especially like I said, as the economy is recovering for everyone, especially the majors that Towson University offers.
Yeah, and just to chime in here, I think if they're along the shortage, one that came to mind was the trade industry and certain roles within the construction industry. Micah, who we mentioned before, is in the industry. He would be a great person to connect with to talk a little bit more about that. Even Allison, who's very involved with commercial real estate, we mentioned technology, but also really anything in the STEM field, right? There's a ton of opportunities within engineering. And even on the accounting side, if accounting isn't something that interests you, the accounting world is moving all towards automation. So there is going to be such a need for updated technology that is going to take away of a lot of work actually from accountants, especially at like the staff senior levels. So a lot of things changing very, very quickly, especially as we get into technology, but it's a great avenue to go through. We have about 3 minutes here left. And we have one last raffle prize to announce. But before we get to that, just want to get any last thoughts from the panelists here or anyone else in the chat. I know Marcy, who's fantastic, she mentioned about using the Career Center. Towson has so many opportunities available to help you, whether it's the Career Center or different associations to help you get going. So definitely make sure you connect with Marcy or anyone in the career department to help you to get started with all the great things that we've talked about today. So Alex, I'll start with you. Any last thoughts today as we close up?
Sorry, I was on mute there. I was seeing that there's one final question that came in. Oh, I guess it's more of a statement, but yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with that. I think that was Nick who said that, so couldn't agree more. Yeah, I mean, again, we're here, right? I don't want to offer up Allison and Anne Marie or Katie, but I think we're all here, right? We're here and available. We've all been working for a little while now in the professional setting. We've dealt with different experiences and different things, so leverage us, right? Again, I think that this last point that was brought up, right, about not just looking for the job, but looking kind of for what's next and what the career path that you want. I think that that's a great call out for the individual who said that. So, be mindful of that. As Allison and Anne-Marie pointed out in the beginning, be mindful of what you want out of life and out of your career. I love that Anne-Marie said, it's not about living to work. It should be, there should be a delicate balance there where we get to enjoy life and be able to enjoy the things that we have to do for 40 plus hours a week. So, again, find me on LinkedIn, reach out. Would love to talk with some of you guys.
Perfect. Anne Marie, what about you?
So just to add on to those great comments, there's no one like you. Everybody that's in attendance today, you each bring very special things to the table, and don't ever discount that you don't. But you have to know what those things are and know them, own them. We've all been there. everybody that's here today has been in your shoes. We understand completely the stress that comes with getting on your way to your career. And, we're available. If you want to reach out by LinkedIn, I'm happy to have, offline conversations. Us Tigers need to stick together. That's what this is all
Yes.
about. So please don't hesitate to reach out. It doesn't stop at this webinar. But please just recognize that you are an individual. You bring a lot to the table, and the opportunities are out there. So we'd love to help you try to get to that next place.
Yeah, I guess just to recap, I think that again, it's just super important to know yourself, what you're interested in, and know that that's okay, that changes over time. I think it's important to have a good open line of communication with whoever your direct manager is at your job, and make sure that whether or not you're having an issue or you want to learn more or have more responsibility, that you continue to communicate that with your supervisor, and all in all, just make it fun and try not to take it way too seriously. So again, I learned a lot from Alex and Anne Marie today, so thank you both for your input as well. My company is launching an internship program this summer, and I am currently looking for a marketing and events intern. So if that role fits you and you're a current student at TU or a soon-to-be grad, the post will be up on Handshake later today. So please submit your application, and I hope I get a chance to interview you. And if not, please keep me in mind along with the rest of the panelists as a possible mentor.
Perfect. Sounds like a great opportunity. And yeah, I echo everyone's last thoughts today. I thank all of you for the time. We have one last raffle prize, and that's for a $100 gift card to Kenilworth Gourmet. That lucky winner is Ramin Iqbal. Ramin, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll get that over to you. And again, they are looking to hire. So if you're interested in finding out more, you can scan the QR code there. And again, this concludes our webinar today. We cannot thank you enough for the time, and our presenters, Alexa and the Alumni Department, who make all of this possible. Thanks for all your hard work. We hope you got a few nuggets out of today. We hope you follow up with all the great people in the audience, the presenters, and best of luck to you as you navigate your career search. Let us know how we can help. Bye, everyone. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.